Now it is time to move on to our next panel discussion on cybersecurity. Well, the cybersecurity implications of working remotely. We're looking at covering on increased need of identity and access management, mitigating the risk of attack like phishing and malware, limiting access to databases containing sensitive information, potential compliance implications of huge increase in mobile working and use of personal devices, third-party security strategy, evaluating and monitoring new vendors to eliminating security gaps. Well, we have with us our panelists, Rajesh Ganesan, who's the Vice President of Manageengine. Rajesh is the Vice President of the products at Manageengine, the IT management division of Zoho Corporation. He's a part of the leadership team overseeing product strategy and direction for the overall suite. Rajesh has been with Zoho Corp for over 20 years developing software products in various domains, including telecommunications, network management, and IT security. He's currently focused on delivering enterprise IT management solutions as SaaS. Also, we have Boby M, CIO, TVS Supply Chain. He brings 25 years of experience in putting together aggressive plans that are ambitious and complex across deep software product development, strategizing and architecting the digital roadmap and driving change collaboratively that will successfully transform and take business into the future. We also have, joining these two incredible panelists, we have Jacxine Fernandez, Group CISO Adani. Well, Jacxine possesses a rich experience of over 20 years with the domains of cybersecurity, enterprise risk management, and business continuity across the diverse geographic expanse, namely the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. He's been pivotal into the management of enterprise risk and cyber programs in critical sectors and has a successful track record in leading business process improvement while delivering the optimized bottom line results. We also have Priya Kanduri, the Vice President and CTO, IMSS, Head of Cybersecurity Services, Happiest Minds. Well, Priya brings in more than 20 plus years of experience in IT security with domain expertise across cyber risk and analytics, data privacy protection, access governance, risk, and compliance. Well, Priya focuses on business development, new service line conceptualization, development, and successful delivery to the customers across all cybersecurity service lines. This is going to be moderated by Harnath Babu, the CIO of KPMG India. Well, as a dynamic IT leader with over 20 years of experience in the industry, Harnath spearheads initiatives that help drive new agile engineering capabilities while delivering innovative IT and digital capabilities that transform businesses as well as deliver an improved customer experience. He drives several initiatives to deliver high-performance solutions by capitalizing technologies such as machine learning, automation, cloud, analytics, enterprise mobility, and more. So very good welcome to all our panelists. Thank you for joining us on the Big CIO Show.
Thank you, Bhavna. I think it's wonderful and introduction, very helpful for the audience as well. So let's quickly start with I'm audible, I'm clear. There's a bit of an echo that is coming, but I'm sure that can be managed. Okay. So we are in unprecedented times, and obviously companies have been responding to the best of their abilities. I think we've seen last 4 months have been tough for few, easy for few, but I think we've been dealing with this. Digital transformation was once an option. I think now it's become a necessity. I think it's important for organizations to accelerate the digital transformation journey. And we have seen, at least in the last 4 months, that the essential services is getting delivered through technology. Right? We've seen the online boost that has happened in last 4 months. I mean, starting from your grocer next door to clothing to any other service that you're talking about, everything has gone online. I think that means we are actually talking about a lot of data that is actually traveling online at this point in time. And obviously, that also has created a situation where employees are working from home. There's vast amount of data that's getting exchanged digitally using personal devices as well as personal network, right, or home Wi-Fi network. And cybersecurity takes the center stage at this point in time, considering the changes that we have seen. I would say it's not anymore a good to have; it's a must to have situation, right? The threat landscape obviously has increased. and it has expanded because of the work from home situation, right? And as organizations are moving to cloud with their data and the processes, I think it's important that they have to relook at their security policies. They have to relook at some of the critical aspects like identity and access management, or even look at the privacy aspects when it comes to managing employee information. So today we have expert panel with us. Bhavna, you've already introduced them. I will straight away jump to my questions with the panel. Priya, coming to you, I think you work for services industry, right? So we've seen COVID-19 pandemic has actually created countless opportunities for private companies. We just kind of spoken about it. Are the enterprises really ready to deal with these emerging threats that are increasing because of the current situation?
Yeah, thanks, Harnath. Uh, from a readiness point of view, obviously, COVID-19 situation has thrown us into a bit of chaos. From a readiness point of view, I would say yes and no. It depends on the nature of the enterprise as well as the amount of readiness or adoption that they already had from a cloud and digital adoption point of view. So what I'm trying to say is those who were more cloud ready, those who had larger digital adoption already in place, were definitely better or more prepared for the COVID-19 chaos that we've been thrown into than the others. So this predominantly meant being able to up and running remotely, being able to give accesses to applications and data to their employees and customers and supplier chain remotely. So readiness mattered in terms of how digital or cloud ready they were earlier. And also up and running is one aspect. How secure, how reduced the risk is, how comprehensive remote working environment is, secure remote working environment is. Those things mattered. And again, from my own experience of dealing with our customers and partners, there are a couple of points that really mattered. The mobile security aspects were really not ready for many of the enterprises. It's not just about making the devices available, which was also a big deal for many enterprises, but then having robust BCP definitions. Some had outdated ones. Were they doing regular drills, which was not really the case for all of them. Some of them did have good practices in place. This is very important for secure remote working and to make the infra and apps up and running. And the other aspect is, data security as well. Now the data is going more and more across boundaries because of this situation. Everybody is remote. Everybody needs accesses from wherever they are. So again, how ready the enterprises were from a context or content-aware data security point of view. Again, those who were more and those who had the technologies implemented from a more content-aware point of view were obviously more ready than the rest. And all the hype about zero trust security that we've been talking about for a while now has suddenly become the norm, has suddenly become the reality. So those who already had those aspects taken into consideration for their secure infrastructure design were better prepared. And then again, one of the huge opportunity or need that we see now is continuous risk assessments. The earlier norm of do it once a quarter, half yearly or annual doesn't really help anymore because of the number of emerging threats. As we can see, 40% increase in phishing attacks, 70% increase in ransomwares and other kind of attacks would demand that we make it really continuous and ongoing from a risk measurement and awareness point of view. Monthly risk assessments have now become a norm. That's one shift that we are seeing. And moving security more towards the edge-based security techniques, implement access controls, authentication, multi-factor authentication, all these aspects at the firewall or the WAF level itself. And then obviously cloud readiness. The earlier, again, this is another shift where those who were heavily dependent on maybe cloud native security aspects have realized it's not really sufficient anymore. And there's a lot more investments and work that they're doing in terms of getting the cloud environments more robust from a security point of view, trying to implement multiple layers of security on the cloud platforms the way they would otherwise do for a private data center. those are some of the shifts that we are seeing, and the traditional never goes away, and there's just more importance and stress that's now placed on the traditional hygiene in terms of continuous user awareness, continuous patch management, regular proactive vulnerability identification, threat hunting. These hygiene aspects would never leave, and now they've become all the more important. So these are the areas where I see not just an opportunity, but the new threats that would emerge in the space and new areas that enterprises are focusing on have to focus on. So readiness, yes, but may not be sufficient, and it's never a one-time job. It has to continuously stay on, and the confusion will increase in future when certain work will start coming to office, some work from home. The need will just go on increasing to keep these up and running.
Thanks, Priya. I think that's very helpful, because I think as the organizations were, at least some of them were prepared with some of the basics in terms of the technology infrastructure or security. I think they could really deal with things very easily. And you're rightly saying that it's going to be a continuous journey going forward. It's not going to be easy for people to kind of stick around with the older ways of doing things, right? I think the basic hygiene in terms of user awareness to threat hunting to patch management, I think some of those things are going to be part of life as we move forward. Coming to Jacxine, as we're embracing remote working, obviously it's not by choice. I think some of us are really missing offices for sure, and I'm sure you must be as well. But how well do you think we are prepared from a cybersecurity perspective, right? So we have seen cyber threats are increasing. I think Priya clearly kind of mentioned the issues that are popping up because of people working from remote. How is the organization readying themselves, especially in your own case? How is your own organization readying its sort of future and design of controls perspective?
Thank you, Harnath. Sorry, I was trying to speak on mute, and I'm not missing office, as you can see. I'm in my office, so it's not that bad. Having said that, yes, in March, when everybody was scrambling to keep the lights on, I would say, by working from home, we opened up a whole slew of threats that we did not think was possible before that. So even if, I think the shortage of endpoint devices also played a role. I mean, if the person is working from home, do I have laptops enough to give everybody? If they are using their home laptops, then how well is it protected? And I can 99% sure that most of the home laptops are not as well protected as the ones that the organizations give out with all of the bells and whistles attached to it. So yes, those kind of threats did open up. Having said that, the other thing was remotely connecting, and like Priya mentioned earlier, everything was not cloud. Now there is a mad dash to the cloud. But then at that point of time, you have to have these people come into your fortress. You had to open up pathways into that. And how well it was protected, those pathways, and were you checking every connection coming in, was also the point that was being. So I think few hurdles along the way. Organizations realize that, I can't just open up a VPN and give it to everybody, because the next person could be sharing it, or, it's just a matter of time. Password hygiene is always going to be an issue. So I think some organizations learned it the hard way, but most of them, including ours, we went down, let's say, taking it into multi-factor authentication and all of that stuff to ensure that those things were covered. Having said that, the absolute minimum, you do not need to do everything that you were planning. It doesn't have to happen. So I think there was a pick and choose as to what we were exposing on the internet and what we were exposing remotely. I think that was a key decision. And this is where it's not just an IT or a CIO's role here. It's a discussion and an agreement with the business as to how much do you want to really expose out there. We can expose everything, of course. Technically, it's possible, but so is an attack. So I think that was a key differentiator to make that decision as to what you wanted to expose out there. Then, of course, trying to manage all those controls with password age. Are you going to put people out if they don't refresh their passwords and things like that? So I think all of those things came into play over here. At the end of the day, there are some things you cannot do, and let's accept that fact. People are sitting and connecting from their home Wi-Fi. How protected is that? Is that compromised? There are some things that you cannot get past. So I think we have, and a lot of organizations have amply demonstrated that it was a journey. It wasn't on day one. We knew every control was going to be applied, but over the course and how quickly each organization did it was the key.
Sorry, sure. So I think, Jacxine, you rightly said, I think it's about, hygiene. I think Priya also kind of alluded to that. It's about hygiene that you need to continue to manage. And one interesting point that came out was, access to the cloud. Earlier, at least you could control what are the unsanctioned workloads you would have or sanctioned workloads. Now everybody's trying to access from outside. If it's an unmanaged device trying to access from outside, you practically have no control, right? I think some of those challenges would definitely be popping up. And, and with employees working from home, somewhere I've also seen that employees are now getting more active in terms of deploying some surveillance apps and programs to monitor their productivity. I mean, it's about being a little paranoid in terms of how they are utilizing time. Really looking are they spending time watching Netflix. I think some of those obviously challenges still there are there in the minds of employers, right? Are you really seeing some sort of concern related to privacy as employers are actually deploying tools like these, right, in terms of monitoring what their employees are doing? Priya, one of you can answer this question.
All right, I'll take it first if you don't mind. And I think the privacy aspect is something we have to definitely look at it seriously, because we, as a culture, we were not used to work from home. And unfortunately, a pandemic had forced that a situation on a lot of organizations that had never envisaged this. And one of the primary outputs out of this is that it actually works. So how can we better control it is the question. But however, I think some organizations have jumped a little far ahead in terms of how they want to monitor. So it's no longer a question of just timesheets. It's there are applications and there are platforms out there which measure how sleepy you are, how how you looking at your phone while you're working. Are you looking at different tabs? Are you not on the question has to be, and there's no black and white answer here, Harnath. I don't think there is. It's also a company culture. It's about societal culture, and it's about how much a person is willing to give up in the name of privacy, and productivity. So I think these are questions, however, employers also and organizations need to ask themselves. And also, there is a looming Data Privacy Act which is coming our way, and that is going to impact a lot of all of them. So in that respect, if you look at it, I think this is something we have to definitely look at the risk of privacy. And organizations have to take that conscious decision as to how much they want to deploy. You don't want to deploy too much, and then tomorrow, because of regulation, you are forced to roll back. So then there was no point in investing in that much monitoring or surveillance. So I think this is a debate which doesn't have a clear answer now, but one has to take this long-term view and see how much they want to do it.
Sure. Yeah. Rajesh, you want to speak?
I can add a point. I do agree it's still a gray area, right? When we talk about privacy, but even like it's not just companies, right? Even governments want to track you, and for fair enough reasons. Like you have the Arogya Setu app now, which people cannot say I will not share my data, right? So the intentions also have to be seen. Where it is getting clear how companies and organizations and governments can do privacy better, this is where we need to take a leaf out of the GDPR book. And there is absolutely nothing gray there. When it comes to privacy, put the power at the hand of the user or the data subject or the employee, right? So whatever tracking you do, as long as you notify the user and they give explicit consent, it should be okay, right? And that is a point I just wanted to make here. So we can talk about cultural issues, political issues, but when it comes to privacy, if you put the power into the hand of, like how GDPR calls it, data subjects, this is the end user, then we have some clarity. And as long as businesses can establish their intent, right, for what purpose they are using this data, we should be okay. I just wanted to add this point.
Sure. Thanks, Rajesh. I think that's clear that it's about the choice of the person who's actually giving the information.
Right.
As far as the organization, the hygiene, following the practice of informing the person or data subject that they are getting monitored, or at least I think that at least keep some check on what information is getting passed, right? Just to stay with you, Rajesh, as we are seeing more and more endpoints are out, right? I mean, they were in the enterprise network. We used to feel more secure because whatever has to happen was within the network, right? I mean, now everything has gone out, and people are more susceptible to threats like phishing, malware attacks, and things like that. So, what sort of technologies do we need to use at this point in time to keep our endpoints secure? I think Priya kind of rightly said that it's about hygiene in terms of making sure that people are aware about some of these security threats, but it's also important to have technological controls which needs to be put in, right? I mean, you can't just let a person decide what's right or what's wrong. So, what exactly you guys are doing from providing the right kind of relevant tools so that people can be made safe, at least the endpoints can be made safe.
Yeah, this is a very important question. So I started working in '96, right? Like last 24 years, I've been in the technology industry. So Hotmail existed in 1995. So we had cloud for the last 25 years. As far as I can remember, last 15 years, I've been on and off working from home. So have been my colleagues, so have been my friends. So this pattern actually existed. People going out of the corporate boundary to do their work, taking devices along has always been happening. Cloud has been around for a long time. But what happened from this February, as you rightly said, so people still came to the office very regularly. They took their devices in. In the best case, the security team, the IT teams were able to protect the entire stack, entire technology stack, right? Or in the worst case, they had at least the illusion of having things under control. But now they neither see the users nor the devices, right? They're completely gone out of sight. They don't know where those layers exist anymore. The network layer is in bits and pieces. They don't know the security posture of the networks or the devices, right? So this is where one tactical, I could even say strategic approach that technology teams inside organizations should take is to see endpoint management and endpoint security as one unified program, right? And this is importantly why you are also using the term endpoint and not devices anymore, because the definition itself is like broadening, right? When you say an endpoint, it's not anymore just a physical device. Your browser is like a rightful endpoint, right? Your application that you install, a corporate application that you install on your phone or your laptop is actually an endpoint because it has its own user management, its own entitlements, all of that. Each of these has to be managed as separate endpoints, and which is why we even use the term endpoint, right? It's just to say it's not just physical devices that you need to manage, but also all the software components. And typically what organizations tend to do is split the management and the security programs into two different silos, right? So how you procure these endpoints, how do you do license management, how do you do annual maintenance and contract is very, very different from how do you do patch management or like say even antivirus and things like that. Now this has to be unified because a device or an endpoint, as I said, AMC expiring, or you having a file longer than that is needed, or you having 80% hard disk drive could actually be a security vector as much as it is a management action, right? So this is converging. So the management of the endpoint and securing of the endpoint. So my strong suggestion is companies start looking at it as a unified program, and which is why we even call it unified endpoint management and security. And we have tools already in the market that would allow companies to manage this as one program, because you now have devices and network all over the place, right? So our company has 10,000 users. Like we told people, just go home and be wherever you are and start working. And for this to work, we need to have a very, very solid endpoint security and management program that we utilize.
Sure. I think Rajesh well said. I think it's about endpoint security management. It's not about any more end devices or it's not about a laptop or whatever. It's about the endpoint which needs to be managed. And one thing we also have to be very cautious is whatever endpoint you would be using. Somewhere we are also leveraging cloud platform.
Right.
So Boby, coming to you, as the enterprise cloud is really fulfilling the demands of collaboration, especially during the time of remote working. Are there any potential threats that we are seeing? I think we've had a cloud panel earlier, but certainly I would want to understand from this context. Are we seeing any potential threats from our data in cloud? And what sort of strategy do you have in place for safety and compliance of the data that is there on the cloud?
Yeah, thanks, Harnath. I reckon this came to me. This is Boby.
Yeah, Bobby. Yeah.
All right. Hey, thanks. When I've been listening to the panelists speak about security, and one thing kept coming back to me is essentially about the fact that really what are we doing about the way the world is going, where we are on cloud and data is on cloud, applications are on cloud, and how do you really want to manage with that scenario? So typically it is to me a very key question to answer from two aspects. One, companies are moving digital at a pace which we have not even thought through, and they're just doing that so quickly, and thereby the entire perspective of developing applications, the rigor that we used to have in the entire SDLC process has been diluted. They call it agile today, and then applications are developed on the fly. And what we see is that if you look within the application stacks today, you would see that we build applications which are inherently vulnerable, and thereby a quick summary or a scan of your company's data on the dark web is enough to give you sleepless nights for months. I speak that from personal experience, right? The kind of stuff that remain in the dark web, the passwords, the emails, etc., that go out, it's a bit of a mind-boggling thing. So perspective, if you really ask me, Harnath, on this scenario, is that as we move forward from the whole COVID and post-COVID new normal, I think it is extremely important to rethink what is application development from a perspective of how do you move security inside applications. Today, we are used to treating security and applications as two discrete elements, but I see as we move forward with the whole concept of the endpoints becoming your points of actionable security and the networks basically blurring into the internet, the applications have to be stronger, the applications have to be more secure, and you have to essentially look at security deployment as code. And with everything else getting onto the cloud, security at some point in the near future will have to be brought into the SDLC. And you need to start building applications that are secure by design rather than looking at security coming outside. So that's a line of thinking which I would really want and urge everyone to take, given the scenario and given the fact that we would be working from homes a lot more, and we will not be able to see people and authenticate people on the network. And towards that, the kind of steps that we have to take today will determine successful organizations as we move forward.
Sorry, Harnath, you're on mute.
Harnath, can we have you unmuted, please?
I'm so sorry.
No worries. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think, Bobby, you're right. I mean, it's about having secure application development practices, right? At the end of the day, it's the experience that the end user is having with the application. But you can't have a situation where security is not part of the core build of the application, and you're compromising on some of the fundamentals of technology, right? So coming to Priya, one thing which obviously has been bothering us, or was bothering earlier, is how do you go and justify these spends that we were doing on cybersecurity, right? I mean, always we would have to say that why cybersecurity is required, what is it that are going to be achieving it. Are we facing a similar kind of a situation where even after pandemic, we are seeing where people are going and convincing the management saying that what's the ROI for investment? Or is it like an easy flow from a security perspective?
So, Harnath, a couple of, my own personal observations in the current situation. Some of the security budgets or programs that were allocated to, implementations, which are predominantly compliance driven, they have taken a backseat. I can take an example of one of our customers with 300 users. Access governance was something that they had to implement because it was a compliance requirement. But for a 300 user organization, it will work. Manual, it's still an option that they could look at. So investment into a tool and technology and implementation was driven by compliance mandates. That has taken a backseat, just to give an example. But then at the same time, and also many enterprises have received relaxations from a compliance point of view now. Either there are relaxations implemented on compliance adherence, or the dates for audits are pushed back by a couple of months, giving organizations breathing time to focus on more critical priorities. However, cybersecurity aspects such as data governance, data protection, application access controls, specifically for those who are coming in through remote channels of working, and also entry-level access controls, perimeter level access controls, perimeter level enhanced cybersecurity controls, which will all enable zero trust kind of security. Those have become more critical now. They have been brought forward in the roadmap. Implementing more mobile device security controls for email access or enterprise data access, or if we are accessing file shares or SharePoint kind of applications on the mobile. There's a lot more mobile security control now that's required. So all these have come into the forefront. Now, going back to your question, what's really happening is there has been a shift in priorities. There has been a shift in terms of where the enterprises want to invest, and it's also in line with the technological landscape shift as well. Some of us, we already discussed. There's more focus given on endpoint security controls. There's more focus given on cloud security. There's more focus given on enabling privacy by design for the additional personal data that we are accepting. Those have come to the forefront, and the change is that getting an approval for those has become much faster than how it was before. So earlier, proving security, relevance of security, importance of security, ROI for any kind of cybersecurity used to take much longer, which has now become quite I wouldn't say easier, but quite shorter timelines in terms of getting it approved and pushed through. That's been a shift because of COVID, because the importance of security has increased. And people have realized that, enterprises have realized that with all the chaos that's going on right now, a security breach is the last thing that they can afford. And so investments, I would say, instead of increasing or decreasing, they've been realigned. The programs and controls that they have to implement have been reshuffled or reprioritized. But the approvals and going ahead with the ROI, etc., have become much faster compared to how it was before. So, and it makes a lot of sense if you look at how the whole landscape is changing pre-COVID, during COVID, and also the priorities that we would need to have in place a post-COVID situation where, as I mentioned earlier, you will have workforce divided between working from home, and the remote working is going to continue to be the norm, and that continuously brings its additional challenges. So, cybersecurity, importance of cybersecurity investments on those have continued to take precedence. It's just that where it's being invested and how long it takes to get these pushed through. That's where there's been a positive impact. So now it is all about security for security.
Yeah, so I think you're right. So at one side, we know that CISOs are going to be having difficult time protecting their organizations, but on the other side, there'll be some relief saying that we don't need to really go and stress ourselves in terms of getting budgets. So that's a big thing on that. Yeah. So just coming to you, Bobby, and maybe Jacxine, you can also pick it up. I think you've been working with a lot of third parties, right? So I think as our employees, or let's say as employees of an organization, that they are going out and working from home. Third parties too, go. Obviously, they also are working from home or working from remote. What sort of security controls are you looking at, especially in those scenarios? Because you may not have a direct control in some of those cases. Any specific views around that?
Okay, I'll go first. I think third-party risk management, while it has been discussed about extensively in meeting rooms, I don't think there has been enough that has translated from, let's say, the meeting room into a contract. I think while there is a fair expectation of what, and especially when you talk about service providers, let's say if you are an outsourced, and which most of the organizations are today, if you're outsourced, there is an expectation that I am availing of security service from XYZ. But at the same time, have I written those things into contract as to how they will connect? What are the processes on their end of it? I think while there has been quite a bit of discussion, what the current pandemic has also thrown up is once they have gone remote, how are they connecting? We are putting all the security that we want for our employees and over here, but at the same time, the service provider might not be having those that level of security implemented for them. And unless this gets translated into a contract, it's only, I would say, best effort basis. So there has been that realization also that we have to bring in comprehensive sections within our contracting, along with our commercial teams, to ensure that the kind of access that our service partners provide, and in fact, stats are available. I mean, Harnath, like you're aware, I mean, attackers don't necessarily go after bigger organizations now. They can go after the service provider and then probably get a buffet of 10 clients which that service provider provides to be able to go after. So, and we have seen recent cases in India itself where this has happened. So I think this has been a wake-up call that, this third-party risk is something quite pertinent, because we tend to trust our service partners at a higher level than when connections are coming off the internet or something. So I think that realization has sunk in, and also the realization that this has to be contractually obligated. Otherwise, it's just a best effort. You're asking them to do something if they can, and whether it makes business sense or, let's say, more P&L sense, then we do it. Otherwise, not. So I think this has to come in, and the only other driver for this is the reputational aspects on both ends of it. I, as a client, don't want to get breached, and my service provider doesn't want to be the reason for a breach, and hence we are trying to play a balance whereby we can get the best case security in play, which shouldn't be the case. We should know what is the best possible out there, and we should be asking for the best. I think so. That is a factor that has thrown itself up in this whole situation. And my suggestion stays the same. It has to be contractually obligated. Everything that the panelists have discussed, whether it's endpoint, whether it's network, whether it's all of this in a contract going to the service partner also.
Sure. Sure. Thanks, Jacxine. I think that's interesting. Right? In fact, unless you have a very strong third-party risk management framework and you don't really hold the service provider through contract, I think it won't really fly. Bobby, any views on that?
Yeah, I agree with Jacxine, but then there's a distinct difference in the way I would want to address this risk. The risk is very pertinent and right here, right? And taking you back to the control systems principles, when you have two systems with reliability of X and Y working together, the reliability of the total system is X product Y, right? So even if two systems are at 90% security levels, we are looking at an 80% security level when they're working together. And that is really the scenario when you have a third party working with you and they're working together with your environments. Your overall security levels drop drastically, right? And as far as I have seen, that is an area where we as technologists, have to work very closely with the compliance folks, with the legal folks across organizations to bring some sense of clarity and to bring in some sense of comfort to the fact that, yes, my data is safe, my networks are safe, and so on. So right now, looking at the way things are, the fact that this COVID came and hit us in the face when we were not ready, my approach to that would be to be triply safe and try to limit the access and the exposure I would have my partners into my data and my infrastructure. This is purely from avoiding risk standpoint, and even if you look back, a big IT vendor, one of the large SIs, had a ransomware attack, and we all know what really happened. The risks are out there; they're very pertinent, and safety has to come from being protective of your data and infrastructure right now, because I don't see that we are up there in terms of tools to bring in that level of protection yet. Harnath.
Sure, very right, I think, Bobby. So Rajesh, coming to you, I think as a provider of technology and tools, what should be an ideal strategy for an organization to pursue intelligence-driven cybersecurity strategy, obviously leveraging tools and technologies?
Right. So yeah, you asked Priya about so how companies are willing to increase their budget, and she gave a brilliant answer, right? So one of the points she touched upon was how companies are, given the situation, the last thing they can really afford is a security incident. Also, the other trend that she talked about is how going forward, it's work from home scenario, working from remote areas. And one of the trends that we also see, and we are also encouraging as a company, is so people could come and work in the office, they could continue to work from home. Or we are also encouraging small teams of 10 and 15, form a small satellite office and collaborate and work, right? Because people still want this social life in their work environment. So all of this is possible. And with this context said, what we are talking about intelligence in terms of security is how much less manual assistance you actually need to make sure this setup works, right? So this is sort of when you have so many people spread across the geography, working in different setups, different groups, you cannot afford to have manual expertise available all the time, right? That is exactly what we are talking about. And this means you have to make all the components in your infrastructure. When I say components, it includes people, all the applications, your systems, your endpoints, all of this have to be made self-sufficient, right? So far when everything was inside the office, help was just sometimes a shout away or just a local phone call away. Now that is no longer the case. It's not just operations or management, as I was emphasizing. It is also about security. So with that said, right, so all these components, for the users, you have to make sure you have the right set of knowledge management tools. You have the right set of self-service tools. So when they have any need for asking assistance, when they have a question, right? So in the last 4 months of COVID, when we did some industrial survey, a lot of assistance was from people, like they are experts in their own fields, right? They are legal experts, they are like financial experts. But when they have to configure, right, a Zoom software or Zoho meeting, they still need assistance, right? So the panelists here, like we were struggling to get assistance get into this meeting, right? So this is where remote assistance becomes very, very important. So that is one component. And then talking about systems and application components in your infrastructure, they also have to become self-sufficient, not only in terms of management, but also security. This is again, Priya talked about points like access management, right? So you no longer can have people or a security operations center, people sitting there watching dashboards about what is happening. You need to build intelligence where the infrastructure sort of has this self-monitoring, self-healing, and self-remediation capabilities, and that's what we are talking about. So when you talk about systems and applications, when a privileged user logs in, right? What I mean by a privileged user? This is a database administrator getting into a database, a SQL Server database in the infrastructure. regardless of the entitlement of the person, when he or she wants to do something, the system should have the intelligence. It goes and does a lot of checks. Somebody is trying to do some action. Is this really needed at this point, right? Regardless of the entitlement, the system should have the intelligence to say, you are trying to do this, you really want to do this at this point, right? It pops up, asks a question, raises a flag, and this is what we are talking about. So this is just in time privilege elevation. Only when something is needed to be done, you give people the privilege. That is one way. And you take like normal business users. It could be the salespeople, it could be people working in legal. So they could be accessing a lot of systems and applications on premises, on cloud. There you have technologies like CASB, as we call it, Cloud Access Security Broker, right? So how do you unify access to all the systems that you have? How do you inherit privileges, right? All of this brings intelligence and self-sufficiency into the network. And finally, talking about endpoints, we have a really exciting technology that is coming up called EDR, which is endpoint detection and response. This is nothing, it is very similar to edge computing in the server space, where you push the endpoints, you increase the capability to detect attacks, and not only detect, initiate the first level of response. This is called as endpoint detection and response. So these are some of the technologies, capabilities that are really exciting, that are like coming into the market, right? I'm actually throwing a lot of buzzwords here, right? But obviously, as practitioners like Priya and Jacxine were talking about, so these things are becoming really, really important. The point here I want to make is we are living through a disruption, and the only way to face that is to sort of disrupt our current status quo, take it on, so we not only survive but also be able to compete and thrive later. So we as vendors, we're trying to understand all the challenges that our customers would have, and we need to help each other, push each other to see this through.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Sure. Thanks, Rajesh. I think that's quite wide array of tools. Bhavna, I know we're running out of time.
Yes.
Any questions that you would be? Any questions?
Harnath, there are certain questions, which is what I wanted to address. So I'll quickly address it to you, if that's okay. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so first, Vibha is asking, can you provide the name of some of the tools recommended for endpoint management of security? How do we ensure security if we allow employees to bring in their own device and connect from everywhere? That is Vibha's question. Could you address that quickly?
Sure. So I think on the endpoint security, there are two things. One is obviously secure connectivity, which can happen through a VPN of sorts. And plus, you would also have, I think, as Rajesh was mentioning, that you need to have unified endpoint management or threat management that you need to do. So you potentially can deploy advanced threat protection tools, or you can have antivirus or whatever. I think there are multiple tools that are available. As I was mentioning, there are a wide array of tools. It all depends on to what an extent you want to protect your endpoints. It also depends on what is the mode of providing the access. It could be through a virtual desktop interface, or it could be direct access on an endpoint, or it could be a managed or unmanaged device. So it depends on the situation, but there are a wide array of tools that are available.
Sure. And Harnath, just one more, wherein Ashton asked that, do the panelists see work from home as the new normal post the pandemic too? If yes, what needs to be done, and should it be considered for further scenario securing the organization's infrastructure, including the endpoints? Just your final take on that to the entire panel, just if you can put in one line each. Thank you. Jacxine, we can start with you.
All right. Yes, it is the new normal. Let's not kid ourselves. Organizations have already, if not public knowledge, a lot of organizations have already started down. Is 10% going to work from home? Is it 20? Is it 30? Is it 40? Somebody like some of my panelists have already said they've been doing it for years. Yeah, but I agree with that. But that was a lot of MNC culture. But it's now percolating among the larger organizations within the country. So yes, it is here to stay. The tools that are going to come, Harnath mentioned quite a few of them, how they could do it. All of this is going to become part and parcel. In an HR context, we keep telling we all trust our employees, but let's be honest, we don't trust all of our employees to work in their best interest also, which is why we have managed devices. So most of these tools, these processes are here to stay. How much of it, I mean, today maybe people are working from home 80-90% of the organization, but it will come down. But there is going to be a definite population which is going to stay at home and work from home. So that's my opinion.
Thank you so much. Harnath, I mean, we're really short of time. If probably one more panelist could just say it in a line, probably I believe Boby, if you could just say it in one line towards the end. Boby, if you can unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Right, so, I think it's just important for us to understand that quarantine is a way to delay things, but the vaccine is the cure. That is for COVID as well as for security. So we were quarantined inside the networks in the offices, but now without a vaccine at the endpoints and at all levels of computing, it becomes very difficult for us to be considering ourselves to be safe. So that's my one word to sum up whatever we have on this topic.
Okay, thank you so much to the entire panel. Harnath, I'm so sorry, I'll have to conclude on the current panel right now because we're falling in short of time. But thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to the entire panel.
Thank you, guys.